bring back memories, and all of a sudden, it just got to me because it is. We all have a little, post-traumatic stress syndrome from Katrina.
Yeah.
If you live through it, you'll never forget it.
Yeah. I wasn't here for Katrina. I watched it horribly from when I was living in Colorado. My sister was here, and we didn't know if she was dead or alive for a week, and it was a horrendous experience, but nothing compared to what you all went through covering it, living it, and experiencing it. It's just unreal. But the situation is not the same. It's a different storm, but the feelings, I'm sure, are similar.
Well, and for Lafourche and some other places, this was their Katrina. I mean, they took it right on the brunt. You look at what happened in Grand Isle, and I remember when Sally Ann Roberts and I were on for hours and hours, we were pleading with people to leave. And people just were kind of hard-headed, and I just remember arguing with people and just begging people to leave. And then I was getting some last-minute shopping done right before we were evacuating to Baton Rouge, and I saw someone, a friend of mine, and I asked if she was staying. She said, yes. I said, why on earth would you stay? I said, have you seen that thing out there in the Gulf? Just get out. And she left, so which was good.
Yeah, well, now, it's over. The recovery is just beginning, but Doug Mouton has been out and about, and he's going to be here in the studio right now. Just a second, a little perspective of how things are on the North Shore, Doug.
Yeah, hey, Katie. Well, first of all, and I'll say this, one thing that is too familiar with the Katrina days is, as of today, getting cell service, making a phone call, sending a text. I have not been able to send a text since last night at about 11 o'clock. I didn't think that could happen again in 2021. It certainly was the case in 2005. Ironically for me, I watched Katrina hit and I watched Ida hit, both in the city of Hammond. We had a little video from Hammond. I just want to show you what it looked like last night. Now look, this was not what people went through in Lafourche or Terrebonne, but I will say this, for as far north as Hammond is, to get hit head on by a Category 2 hurricane, which is what it was when it got to the city of Hammond, it is pretty incredible that the storm still carried that much punch when it got to us. Now, we actually stayed at the Hampton Inn in Hammond, which right about this time, we kept power later than most people. We had power until 9 o'clock, but around this time is when the power went out. This is us waiting to do a live shot. This was when the eye of the storm was about maybe 20 miles, 15 miles from us, and we're waiting to do a live shot. That was my head there. Actually, the hotel wound up taking on a ton of water. It did keep its roof, but there was a ton of damage on the North Shore. And look, here's the one message that I want to make sure people get. First thing we saw this morning then was state police clearing trees, a ton of pine trees off of the interstate. They were clearing I-55, and the job they were doing was unbelievable. They were chainsawing and literally jogging to the next tree. One guy would chainsaw, next they would pull the tree off, and they would move to the next tree, and they were clearing I-55. It was very impressive to watch. Look, here's the one thing I want to tell people, because I know we have a lot of viewers watching us from out of town. Know this when you come here. Count on not having any power, and not only not having any power, not having any power anywhere. Count on not having any place to get food, and most importantly, I was talking about gas lines, Tonsey and long gas lines. You're not going to see any gas lines on the North Shore because there is no gas to be had from Hammond to Slidell. We found one gas station open in the Mandeville area, but then their credit card machine was having trouble linking because there's no internet anywhere, and especially if you have AT&T, all the phone service was out. People at Verizon were having a little more luck, but the phone service was out. There was no gas to be had, so have your tank full, bring everything you need for that day, and my advice would be, if you're going to drive in from your hotel someplace, drive in, do your thing in the house, and drive back, because there's not anything to be had as of right now. Obviously, that'll get a little better. Now we have a second piece of video. This is what we saw in Mandeville today. This was in one neighborhood, and actually I was driving around with Adam May, who is our sports photographer. He and I worked together a lot, and he actually grew up in the Kenner area, lived in Metairie, and his one line, which I thought was great, was Adam said, I didn't realize they had so many trees on the North Shore. The North Shore is all trees, and a lot of them went down. This is one neighborhood where there are a ton of pine trees that went down. Pines, actually, the pines didn't come down. Most of the pines stayed, but a lot of the pines snapped. There's one on a house. There's a lot of trees with houses on them. The lake is still backed up. In this neighborhood, this is in the Woodridge subdivision, which is off Highway 22. The back of that subdivision backs up towards Lake Pontchartrain, and that's what the back of the subdivision looks like. Now, all those houses in the back of the neighborhood are built up, but obviously can't get cars there. You'll see in the video a guy riding a Sea-Doo in the back of the neighborhood. That's actually a street between Mandeville and Madisonville, so a lot of it looks like that. Now, I won't say that's the most unusual thing. We have seen that back there, but there is a lot of water. There is a ton of tree damage. And what we did see too today was a ton of people who have gone back to their house and are cleaning up. We saw people are certainly not lazy, and they are ready to get back in and start taking things down. The number of chainsaws in use today is huge. And then we saw trees across roads and trees on houses. You're going to see a house here that sort of has trees hitting one house from two different directions. So there's going to be a lot of roof repairs done. There's the V shape of the tree hitting the house. Again, the one reason I wanted to come on set to tell people is so that people watching us out of town have a realistic idea of what they're going to see. And this is on the North Shore. This is anywhere from Tangipahoa to St. Tammany. Especially count on not having any gasoline. So the last open gas station you see if you're coming in, top your tank and fill up, because you are not going to find gas anywhere, and you're not going to find food. You're not, for now, and again, I'm sure those services will be coming back, but bring whatever you need to do your work, and my advice would be bring it in, do your thing, and then go back.
And Doug, a lot of parents are saying exactly what you're saying. If you don't have to, don't come back now, because we don't know how long we're going to be without power. As you said, cell service is bad. You know, a lot of neighbors were out helping neighbors, and I'm sure you saw a lot of that. But remember, we went through what amounts to a 12-hour tornado ripping through. You know, this was a hurricane, a 4, a 3, a 2, and a 1 for 12 hours straight.
And the way it's that, look, we had power until 9 o'clock, and my mom, my 85-year-old mom, was home in Metairie getting pounded hour after hour after hour, and there was literally nothing I can do about it. It's the most helpless feeling. My mom's fine. She made it through. My mom's to the point where she doesn't drink anymore because it upsets her. I said, Mom, this is the time. Drink some wine and try to sleep and wake up tomorrow. And I think she heeded my advice because she stopped answering my texts at some point. Look, I just want people to be realistic. Look, I understand. I had to see my house. And I so understand. You want to see your things. You want to see how you survive. You want to see your backyard. I totally get that. And I wouldn't tell people not to do it. Although, if a neighbor takes pictures and you feel good, don't come. It's not going to accomplish much, and you're going to be miserable. We drove by a guy. We were coming in from Slidell because the causeway is still closed. So we had to swing around Slidell, and we're driving next to a guy. He's coming through Slidell, and I saw a guy looking at his cell phone, and I turned to Adam and I said, you know what he's doing? He's saying, why is this thing not working anymore? Because it goes out. Now, the one thing I did see, we saw a massive AT&T staging area in Slidell, which is a great thing. And when we were in Tangipahoa in Hammond, we were staying at we got a room at the Hampton Inn. All the hotels, and there were 3 big hotels in that area, all 3 of them had a ton of these bucket trucks. These companies had set up in advance out of state. One company from Nashville, one company from Indiana. There was a 3rd one from Kentucky. They had all staged all their massive recovery trucks, all their electrical trucks, generator trucks. They were all, before the storm even hit, they had restaged. I saw some of them at that North Shore Mall area. So they're out there working. Things are are gonna come back, but if you don't have to come back now, don't. And if you do really feel the need to come back for the day, bring everything you need, count on not making a cell phone call, count on not having gas, not having food, like bring it all with you. And my advice is, unless you're like sleeping without air conditioning in a hot city, drive back to your hotel wherever it is. That's the one thing I just wanted to tell people who are anxious to come back and see their stuff and do some work. That one neighborhood, I would say we saw 100 people out. That was one little subdivision in the Mandeville, Madisonville area. They're everywhere. People are out working. I get the need to do that, but just bring everything you need.
You know, I think the North Shore is going to be in better shape in terms of getting power and stuff back, which is good for them. But you're right. I mean, it may be a better choice to wait if you don't have to get back right away. Just wait until the power's back.
Yeah, I live in the same house that I lived in the Mandeville area that I lived in during Katrina. We got our power back on September 19th. And the only reason I remember the date is because it's the day the Saints played the Giants on TV. So my power went on and I could see the Saints game on TV, if you remember that. And that was 22 days after Katrina. So I don't think this one's going to take as long. I don't have any reason to think that. That's just my guess. But that was 3 full weeks.
Well, I live uptown, and in the same house as I lived in during Katrina. I got my power back on November 4th, because you remember the day. All right. Who knows how long it's going to take this time. All right. Let's get over to David Hammer, who is in Bridge City right now.
Yeah, he's looking at the power situation and that tower that was down, David.
Yeah, Katie and Eric, we're actually here. I'm with City Council President Helena Moreno from New Orleans City Council, but we're here in Avondale on the West Bank in Jefferson Parish. But we're here because behind us we see a very key part of the transmission system for Entergy. It is completely knocked over by the force of Hurricane Ida's winds, and we believe that there's another tower that's even taller that would have connected the lines and then gone across the river to Harahan and fed the East Bank for power. So this is very important, and Helena, you've been in touch with Entergy. I have too. They've been explaining to us why these 8 transmission points that come into the city being down all at once has left us like island. We are without any power coming from outside, from MISO, the network, regional network that supplies us with additional power. Can you talk about what you learned and what the plan is now from Entergy?
Sure. So first, David, funny to find you here. We actually were coming to this area because I'd heard so much about this transmission tower that had fallen in Avondale that holds some of the transmission lines, or one of the transmission lines, main ties, coming in from 9 Mile, which is one of the power plants over here. So driving by, obviously we saw this. I think this is part of one of the towers. It looks like one of the bridges up to one of the towers, and that's when I ran into you and we started talking about what's happening. So yes, you're correct. There are 8 transmission ties that come into the city. All 8 are inoperable at this point. Entergy right now has helicopters, has drones, has people, all assessing what went wrong with transmission and how quickly that can be repaired. And look, I just want to be very honest with the people of New Orleans. I got off the phone with the Entergy engineers earlier today, and they told me that the assessment alone of the transmission failures, that alone could take up to 4 days. So up to 4 days of just assessing the damage before it could be repaired. So then there are, options. First, can those transmission lines be fixed? And look, we don't need all 8. We don't need all 8, but what lines can be fixed? Maybe some just stripped, right? So that would be a much easier fix. So can those be repaired? Also, can we get a line coming in from 9 Mile, one of the lines fixed here, and then potentially get 9 Mile powering New Orleans along with the New Orleans power station in New Orleans East? That would provide us over 600 megawatts of power in the city of New Orleans, our own little off-the-grid self-power generation to keep us afloat. This will make us perfect.
600 megawatts is enough for essentially emergency services and things like that, critical services, not necessarily to power everybody's house.
You got it. So, and not to mention, we still have, to get out of town and people who evacuated for the storm, so we don't have everyone in the city. But yes, 600 plus megawatts would keep us, for lack of a better term, afloat.
And to your point about the assessment process taking 4 days, I spoke to Philip May with Entergy, and he said that there's a number of parallel tracks going, looking at different options for how to address this. And this option that you were talking about of doing our kind of own little internal energy
Self-generated.
generation process using 9 Mile 6 is being done separately from their attempt to get one of these 8 towers that bring in power from outside our area back online. But they say that's their primary goal. So how long is it going to take for them to make the decision one way or another?
So that was one of the questions that I had earlier. We're about to actually get on another call at 2:30 where we plan on pressing him even more about, like, why can't we just move forward with getting the NOPS 9 Mile option just thing, let's get going on that. But I just want to also reiterate that there's additional tracks because there's also assessments happening of the nuclear facilities that generate the power that comes into New Orleans, that then goes to the big transmission lines, that then of course goes to the smaller lines, the poles and wires outside of your house. And so many of those are damaged as well. So really we're talking about the power generation of the nuclear and natural gas plants. We're talking about the big transmission lines that bring it from those plants over to the smaller wires that bring it to your house. There's damage on all 3 levels, and there are assessments happening on all 3 levels. But it seems like the assessment that's going to take the longest is on the transmission side.
Now, do we know how critical this particular downed transmission tower is? Has Entergy told you that there's a part of it or a larger structure that's actually in the river? Because they were telling me that there was a downed tower that was 450 feet tall, was highly engineered, had just been inspected and cleared in the last year. This doesn't look like that.
Well, what I heard is that there was an incredibly heavy tower, thousands of pounds, that had collapsed. This is why I'm saying I don't think that this is it. I think this is a portion of it, potentially a bridge leading to it, that collapsed. And
we should point out that we are right on the other side of the levee from the Avondale shipyard, and then directly across the river we can see the tall tower that receives the power from this side in Harringham. So that means that we believe that there's a taller tower that may have fallen that we just can't see yet on the other side of this levee, right?
And I would say that if that is the case, if there is this tower that we've heard about and heard Entergy talk about that has fallen, that's thousands of pounds, I can only imagine that that is going to be really a lengthy fix to try to restore that.
There's also the question of the cost for this, and I know there's going to be time for this later, but maybe we can tell people, because I think a lot of our viewers are concerned because they know they've been paying higher assessments to Entergy, higher fees to Entergy to recover from previous storms, to harden the system, hardening for distribution lines, which are the internal poles that bring it from the transmission system that brings it in from outside and then distributes it to your house. Has there been enough focus on hardening the transmission that brings it in the first place that makes any kind of problem with distribution irrelevant if we lose it?
So I guess what I find a little bit frustrating about this is that my office and through my chief of staff as well, Andrew Chizzolo, we have been waving our hands about this for quite some time, including with our MISO partners, really pushing on that reliability piece on transmission, sending letters, whatever it takes. What I find unfortunate is that so often it takes something like this for changes to be made. So I'll tell you this, obviously we're in close contact with our partners at FEMA. When I was alerted of what had happened with this massive failure of transmission, when Deanna Rodriguez called me yesterday a little bit after 6 o'clock and gave me that this was really a catastrophic failure, I made 2 calls. First was to the mayor to let her know what had happened and that we had lost all transmission power coming into the city of New Orleans. And my second call was to Cedric Richmond so that he would know that we absolutely would need some federal help to pay for not only, of course, the restoration piece, but what about the future?
Yeah, and to point out to our viewers, Cedric Richmond is the senior advisor to President Biden, former congressman from New Orleans. He's now in the White House, in the East Wing or the West, I believe the West Wing, right, with direct access to the president.
And in fact, he set up a phone call there have been so many conversations about, do we bury the line? So I've already told Andrew, please get with our advisors, our utility advisors, and start asking them to start preparing those independent analysis about which of these 8 lines need to be buried. Look, this may have been something, though, that was just such a strong, horrible, storm in this area, what hit, that maybe nothing could have prevented it, what went wrong. But for all 8 to fail, I just think that I'm just wondering whether this could have been prevented, and that's what we're going to be looking into. So yes, the focus is on absolute restoration. That is what we're all about right now. But more will follow with investigations and getting to the bottom of how this happened and what can be done better by the company.
Yeah, and to be clear, Councilmember Moreno is the person who regulates Entergy through the city council, which is why she's over here in Jefferson Parish looking at this, because they report to her essentially as a monopoly serving the city of New Orleans. But Helena, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you, a broadcast veteran here, doing a 2-person live shot here, knowing exactly where to look and what to do.
Well, and I'll just say this, I certainly understand the job that you're doing and that your photographer is doing and everyone back at the station. And I know it's super long hours, but the public absolutely needs you all to continue putting the information out there. And I just very much appreciate your work.
You're welcome, and thank you for your time. Right now, we're just going to send it back to the studio and see if you have any questions, but we'll be following this up during the course of the day. And I also have an extended interview with Philip May from Entergy explaining some of the technical aspects of why this transmission system failed and what they're doing to try to rectify the situation as quickly as possible.
I mean, again,
Back to you in the studio.
for anybody just joining us, David, did you get a real estimate on when we could see power back?
There was no commitment to any kind of timeline. Councilmember Moreno just mentioned that there's a 4-day assessment period just to do the assessment. Philip May from Entergy in his phone interview with me talked about a week. He threw out a week kind of in passing as he's saying that they're going through this process. And that appears to be kind of the timetable for just getting some kind of quick fix online. So we need to be thinking about days here before they even get the first bit of power going. Councilmember Moreno talked about the idea that they could get some kind of initial amount of power going with 600 megawatts. That would be enough to run critical infrastructure and stuff like that, but not enough to power everybody's homes by a long shot.
And can you ask her quickly about the status of our hospitals? I know that the water situation and the power situation are both an issue for them. Are they in okay shape, and how long will they be in okay shape?
Sure, yeah. Katie Moore in our studio is asking about the situation with our hospitals. Water, power is a major issue for them. How are they in good shape right now, and how much longer will they be?
Sure. So, we've got Langwell, Louisiana National Guard in with the city of New Orleans. They've been part of our EOC. So what they've been doing is monitoring fuel levels of their generators, of hospital generators, checking into nursing homes, things like that, to make sure that everyone has the appropriate amount of fuel. And they're making requests from the state to bring in that appropriate amount of fuel. So from our meeting that we had today, our last EOC meeting, which was roughly 10 o'clock, so far, everyone's okay.
Okay, and feeling like it can hold on for how long?
Well, obviously we've got the state coming in with additional fuel and things like that. I mean, if no one came in with anything, it would be one thing, but that's not what we're hearing. We're not hearing like, oh my gosh, there's not going to be anything for New Orleans or anything like that. That is not the case by any means. So far, everything's okay. Yeah, that's not what we're seeing at all. I mean, this is, as far as resource-wise, I'll just say this. I mean, doesn't even compare to Katrina. I was here 16 years ago. I mean, stuff is flowing right in, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I mean, we even have people already prepared coming in with, ready to cook for people in New Orleans, tons of water. We can't keep up with the amount of people wanting to come into the city to help. And it's because they can get here. We're not covered in flood water like we were 16 years ago.
Absolutely, absolutely. Back to you in the studio.
All right, David, thank you so much, and thank Councilmember Moreno for joining us as well. Some important updates there. Hi, Sharice.
All right, hi. We'll have a switch back with therapy.
Yeah, it's good to see you, and welcome for the long haul. We're here to keep everybody informed and to let everyone know what's going on.
Yeah, I've been taking a ride around the city myself, and and riding around the city, it's been really interesting. Seeing a lot of people outside. It's about 85 degrees outside right now. So
It's
when you
really
think about
hot. Yeah.
the power, the humidity that's out there, everyone is just cleaning up debris. I ran into a couple of roadblocks, some large trees that had come down, and also just showing the sheer force of those winds. Power poles that were just leaning all the way to the side or had completely snapped in half. And I'll be sharing some pictures on social media of exactly what I saw going into my neighborhood. But for right now, so many people just trying to keep their spirits up high. And listening to Doug a little bit earlier, he is exactly right. If you don't have to come back, I wouldn't come back. And if you do come back, it's difficult to find gas. People are looking for gas. Grocery stores are closed. I mean, there is no power really, so there's no resources really to reach out for.
Yeah, absolutely. It is not the same situation that you left for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
Whether you have damage to your house or not. It
I have trouble with my parents telling them that too. So
Right.
That's
Right.
where you are.
I know everybody wants to come back and check on things, and I don't blame them at all. I mean, I would want to too. You went and checked on your house, and my husband's been holding down the fort at our house. So you know, just wait.
Yeah, just hold off a second.
Just hold.
I know I can just say that and we did see some significant damage, but not as much. And you could tell that a lot of this was just from very, very gusty winds. I mean, the wind was seriously blowing. And like I said, in a few minutes, I'll share a picture on social media just to show my backyard and how hard the wind really destroyed, how much damage I got into my backyard due to winds, knocking down some trees that have been there for a very long time.
Yeah, well, hopefully that's the extent of it. Everything else is good.
Yeah, well, water damage, but we'll get through it. This is kind of it comes with the territory of being in this great city.
It does.
So you kind of figure out how to get through it.
And at least we're better off than we could have been.
Yes, I will say that. But we are checking around our region though. We got an update from Terrebonne Parish. The water is still high outside that levee system. A lot of the roads blocked by trees, power poles, and debris. And officials are not letting people back in just yet. They don't know when they will be able to. So when they do, there will be a 15-point check system to get in. Now again, something that we're experiencing here, there's no power, there's no water, no sewage services, or communications. Search and rescue efforts are underway, and the TCU Food Bank is coordinating with the parish government to distribute. There will not be any food distributed at the food bank. Now, crews are trying to get the Home Water plant up and running to prioritize water service to the parish's 2 hospitals as well.
Yeah, that is a difficult situation down in Terrebonne Parish. I know that we're going to have crews down there as well. This is another area that was just hit really hard by the hurricane. This is Grand Isle, and these are some of the first images that we've gotten out of the island. These were taken by the Coast Guard and posted on Facebook to their Facebook page, and you can just see the extent of damage. However, I think Eric and I and Chris Franklin earlier, Sharice, were talking about how we're kind of surprised that this is the extent of the damage down there.
Yeah. I just looking at that, I hate to say this, but you expect it to seem much worse.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, I do believe that even though the winds were blowing very hard and there was so much floodwaters, I think that a lot of us were spared, and I know that hopefully we can get through all this. And you see a lot of those homes, they do sit up because you are prepared for what can happen in those areas.
Yeah, they're elevated for sure.
Yeah.
I expected to see, like you can see a couple in that shot right there,
Mhm.
of homes that just look like they were chewed up.
Yeah.
And I expected to see that widespread in Grand Isle, and we don't see that from these pictures anyway.
No. So hopefully we can talk to someone soon. I don't know if you and Eric talked to someone earlier, but just a little bit just to give us an update on the extent of that damage. I know aerial view, we're not able to get an up close look at it just yet. So you see some debris thrown around. Obviously, some of those homes did get some major damage, but for the most part, it looks like people's homes are still intact there. So that's a good thing, and then you can it's giving you something to work with here. Well, new information from New Orleans Public Schools. School officials say all schools and facilities will be closed until further notice. So NOLA Public Schools are working on assessing their buildings after Ida's impact. And like we all are, they are unsure when they'll be able to reopen schools due to power outages. The district says they will begin working with school leaders to assess any damages to buildings and begin to plan for when students can return to class. So right now, we have no timetable. I think it's kind of up in the air for a lot of stuff right now.
Yeah, school districts around the metro area have pretty much said that universally, including Catholic schools. I think
it's hard to say when we're going to be able to kind of get the ball back rolling. And I think it's really interesting. Just a few weeks ago, well, a few days ago, we were having this conversations about returning to school in the midst of a pandemic. Should we keep virtual learning going, and should we, keep our kids at home? Should they be back in the classroom? And then you have Ida that comes through, and that entire conversation kind of goes into the air because we can't even return to the classroom for our kids, for the teachers as well.
Right, absolutely. Before this, I mean, I had one of my children was quarantined, their class was quarantined already, and that was our biggest issue. And, when I stopped to think about what this experience and this year, the last 2 years really, have been like for my kids, I can't even imagine what's going through their little minds.
Yeah.
And, especially for those who are in a situation where they may have lost their homes yesterday.
Yeah, it's mentally draining. It's mentally draining for them. It's already been a rough year for the kids, rough year for the parents. So all of us, this is taking a mental toll on a lot of us. So that's why you have to give a little kindness. And I say all the time, show kindness, show grace. A lot of people are going through situations at home. Some people are without power, they're without food. You don't know when you're going to be able to go back to your home, go back to some sort of normalcy. But even before this, again, I think this is the longest that we've gone days without saying COVID-19, but we're still in the midst of the pandemic, so we still have a housing crisis. You still have an issue where people are getting sick. There is still a virus that is spreading around. There is still a lot that is happening in people's lives that they've been impacted financially, mentally, emotionally. There's a lot of things that are going on. So as we kind of see the daylight and assess the damage, just give a little grace and show a little kindness because everybody's trying here. We're all trying.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the few good things about a disaster like this one is that you really get to see the best parts of humanity.
Yeah.
And you really get to see people helping each other out. And in Louisiana, I mean, I just can't even express how much people are there for each other. And we've seen it time and time again after situations like this one, although we haven't seen anything this extensive since Hurricane Katrina. But I think that spirit that brought everybody together, where they pulled this state and this city back up by their bootstraps. It was really a sight to see, and I think that that's going to happen this time as well.
Well, the good news is we have some resources. I heard Helena Moreno talking earlier about we're in a different situation. This is a different city than it was 16 years ago. So we have the opportunity to really get the ball rolling. We have FEMA funds that have been approved already through the presidential declaration. We have disaster declaration, we, of course, already have, I've seen some trucks, National Guardsmen that have been standing by. I believe, what did Governor Edwards say? A couple of thousand National Guardsmen that have been standing by to assist in different areas, whether it be through rescue. I have been following this chef online, and they had a chef who actually left Haiti to come to New Orleans, and he flew here so that he would make sure that people could eat when this was all over, and make sure that they had an opportunity to eat. So everyone is lending their resources, and it's a different situation. People are able to actually get into the city, as Councilwoman Moreno said earlier, they can get into the city so they can be able to assist where that assistance is needed. So we are in a very different situation, and like we said yesterday, Katrina and Ida are two very different storms here.
Right. I think that's great, and it's going to be wonderful when people can really get back to work and come back and fix their homes and stuff like that. But right now, what officials are telling us is it's just not time yet.
No.
If you can wait to come back, and Doug Newton was talking about it a little while ago. He was saying there's no gas anywhere. So if you come in and you don't have a full tank of gas, you're going to have a hard time getting gas.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the many aspects of what it's going to take to get people back here wholesale.
Yeah.
So if you can wait a couple of days, if your neighbors can take some pictures, if they stayed and you got out and your home is okay, you need to wait. And in some of the areas that were hit the worst by this, you just literally cannot get back. Officials aren't going to let you into the parish at this point.
No, and I know that people are worried. I mean, we have people in our own studios who are worried about their families and about their homes, but you have to do this in a safe way, and it may be difficult to get to some of those areas. So, of course, we're going to continue to look at the damage and continue to stay with you all so that, this is day 3 of our coverage, where we're continuing just the damage that Hurricane Ida has left behind.
Right, and one of the key issues, especially in Jefferson Parish, Orleans is hanging on by a thread in terms of water service. We heard from the Sewage and Water Board that the sewage situation and the small number of sewage pumps that are operating right now is a problem, and it sounds like they're working on getting some generators in to help with that situation. But in Jefferson Parish, the situation is also precarious because basically there's little water available.
Yeah.
It's just not available. So you can't shower. It's hard to flush the toilet. Those basic essential services are not there right now.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's really scary about that is that you need water to put out a fire. And we saw that in Kenner last night. There was an apartment complex where, they were trying to get the fire out, but they couldn't. And Ben Zahn talked to us about that whenever he was on the air last night. He talked to you about that, Sheree.
Yeah, he discussed the fact that there was a fire. This is actually live of that fire that we were talking about here that was still smoldering.
Wow.
This is Mayor Zahn told me last night. He had heard that there was a fire. He was trying to kind of settle some rumors. Well, we learned that this was indeed not a rumor, that this was very much true, and this apartment building was fully engulfed. This was last night, or rather early, overnight. We don't know exactly why this fire started or how this fire started, but they tried their hardest to put this fire out. But one of the issues, as Katie mentioned, and as Mayor Zahn mentioned in that area, is they have a lack of water. They don't, the water system is down. So when you don't have water, if you have any situation, Katie, on the drive here, I was driving down Esplanade, and there was apparently a fire that was going on. I know I've seen smoke, but I couldn't see exactly where the fire was happening. But just imagine, how tightly packed some of our houses are here. So if that fire were to spread to the next home, if they couldn't put that out, can you imagine how difficult that might be for everyone?
Right, exactly, and dangerous. And I think that's another reason why they don't want people back too soon.
Yeah.
Because the fire risk is there, and they can't do anything about it if that happens. Now, again, New Orleans is in a slightly better position than Jefferson Parish is right now, but in terms of water pressure and being able to supply water. But I know that the situation is certainly not where they want it to be. And it's dangerous. And you can see that apartment complex in Kenner is evidence of exactly why.
Okay, I think we have Tom Trunga standing by. He's driving by. What is he on Highway 90? Tom, are you on Highway 90?
We are on Highway 90, Sharice. We just pulled up at 310 and we're trying to make our way down into Homa. And we are, again, as we were yesterday, in the Mobile Forecast Center. And I just want to pan to the right here to show you some of the damage along 90 here. And, you'll have to forgive us because there will be points because the cell service is so spotty right now. We're relying on cell coverage on multiple companies at this point. We understand that AT&T is down, so we might hit a patch where we're relying on AT&T service. So the picture and the sound may be a bit poor at times, but as you can imagine, less than 24 hours or so after a major landfall of a hurricane here, infrastructure is going to be a bit unstable. Right now, we're just passing some of the areas. Usually, for people that are familiar with what we're doing, and when you're coming off of 310 coming from New Orleans, this is sort of the pit stop for many people as they get further into Homa. There's usually several gas stations and fast food restaurants that are open, but some of the tree damage that we're seeing is impressive right now. We passed St. Charles Parish, the Lakewood neighborhood of St. Charles Parish a little while ago, and the public library in that section suffered a lot of damage. We did see some people.
Looks like Ton is cutting out a little bit there. As he mentioned, cell service is so spotty. AT&T is working to get their lines up. We were going to speak with Verizon a while ago. Their service has been more reliable for sure. I haven't had a problem texting,
Yeah.
and I have Verizon.
I have.
You have had problems texting?
I've had problems texting. I don't have Verizon, but I was attempting to go to my house to take a look at what was going on, and I was going to call back to talk to my family about what I was seeing, but I noticed that I had completely no bars, nothing. I I would have been able to do pretty much anything. So service for everyone is spotty everywhere. So, you know, you have a lot of people who are calling back, and, you know, you may get in touch with some people. Doug said he tried to get in touch with his mom earlier, but he might not just be able to do so because I missed about 30 text messages as I walked into the building. They all came at once. So everyone is just trying their best right now. So we hopefully will get Tom back just so we can get a look at that damage. Are we in Kenner? Are we going to Kenner today?
No, Kenner was the fire.
Okay, gotcha.
So we're not there yet, but Tom is headed into Homa, and I don't
Yeah.
think we've really gotten a good look at the extent of the damage there. We know that Hurricane Ida basically sat right in that area for an extended period of time, so I imagine that the damage is widespread in Homa. And, you know, we've heard obviously from people online about issues that they've had there.
Okay, well, we lost Tom earlier. Hopefully we'll get that shot back. But for right now, let's go to Erica Ferrando. She is in St. Tammany for us right now with a look at the damage there. Hey, Erica.
Actually, right now we are under I-12 in Covington. We're kind of near that Target area. This is actually one of the service roads right here, and we're looking at the Tchefuncte River that is extremely high right now. So just take a look. This is under the interstate. Of course, most of the area you see close to us would typically be dry land. Way back there is where the Tchefuncte kind of goes underneath I-12, and there are some homes back there. Of course, most of them are raised up, but it was getting very concerning for some people out there. I also want to give you a look over this way. If we can show this service road right here, you can see that that water has covered that service road, and there are still some cars driving. It looks like it might have actually been a little higher up earlier. We know that normal flood stage for the Tchefuncte River is 10.85 feet. It rose drastically over the last day, but they do expect it to continue rising. They say it could crest at around 28 or 30 feet. That's major flood stage. Last we heard it shouldn't get as high as it did in 2016. That's probably something we could confer with our meteorologists. But this is the Tchefuncte River that they're asking people, especially in the lower lying areas in Goodby. If you live kind of off the Tchefuncte River, this is something that you're going to want to watch. We actually just spoke with a man over when we were on Three Rivers Road. That's over where the Tulane Primate Center is. He lives in another part of Mandeville, but he was going to check on his brother's house, who is kind of one of these houses back here off of the Tchefuncte River. He was going to try and walk there because there were some trees down and power lines crossing the road, so you couldn't drive back there. But he was going to try and walk to the house just to check on it. His brother evacuated, but we spoke with him probably about an hour ago. Take a listen.
There's a lot of wind, much rain. Everybody just huddled in. We have a power generator, so everything stayed on for us. But all our neighbors were, you know, having a pretty difficult time. There's a lot of trees down, and it's pretty bad everywhere.
How was your home? Did you get any damage?
Not our home, but there's everywhere around. You know, 3 houses that way, 4 houses that way. There's trees all over the place.
So right now we're on Three Rivers Road. This is where the Tulane Primate Center is. You said you're coming out to check on your brother's home?
My brother lives right below the overpass where they're repairing it. His house usually gets flooded when there's a lot of rain. I just looked over. It looks like it's up to the patio. He's raised up about 20, 25 feet, and it's up to the patio. Yeah, I can see it from the highway.
The parish is also closely watching the Bogachita River, the Pearl River, the Bogafalaya River. We actually also checked out the Bogafalaya River earlier. We were on Tammany Trace. The bike lane actually crosses right over that, and it was so much higher than it typically would be when we were leaving. They actually had some crews getting out there to barricade it off because it could get even higher and potentially raise over the road that gets you into downtown Covington. We know there was some street flooding out there over on Boston Street and in that area in 2016, and they're saying that we may experience something like that again. We haven't checked in on that situation in a couple hours, but we're going to see what clear off all of the trees. Most of the main roads appear to be drivable. They're still trying to kind of get people to not venture out too much just because they haven't fully assessed how significant the damage is just across St. Tammany Parish. But they did say that they cleared off most of the trees and that the people who were in homes that had trees that fell on those homes, they were able to get out safely, or they were able to help them get out. We know there was a senior living facility in Mandeville that last night part of the roof ripped off of that. That was a senior living facility over on Highway 22, the Roquette Lodge, I believe it was called. There were about 30 residents there that they had to kind of just relocate in the facility. I haven't gotten the latest on what they're doing with them now, but no injuries there, so that's good news. But they did relocate them just for the night because that wind was just so strong that it pulled off part of that roof. We know that power is out across the parish. They're still assessing just the damage. I mean, the power lines and poles are just down all over the place, so they haven't given us an estimate on how long it could take to get power restored, but they're saying days, weeks, they're just waiting to hear. Now, another big problem that we've been having out here, like y'all have been experiencing as well, is cell service. I know Verizon has been working, T-Mobile has been working, AT&T has been giving us a lot of issues. And my family has AT&T, and I'm just now starting to get some texts through to them. They're starting to be able to send those texts to me as well. So if you do have AT&T, you can start trying that. It seems like it is starting to work a little bit. It's still pretty spotty, but we're starting to get a little more cell service out here, which of course is great news. We're gonna keep you updated on just the St. Tammany Parish area. Of course, there's also some flooding in areas that they expected there to be flooding, like along Lake Pontchartrain, the Mandeville Lakefront. They're still seeing that flooding there, but they did anticipate that. We're going to check on some more areas out here and just keep you updated. For now, live in Covington, I'm Erica Miranda. We'll toss it back to you all.
All right, Erica, thank you so much. I know my sister is up in Hammond, and she was unable to use her phones for the last several hours, so she ended up buying a small phone that she used that was a different provider than AT&T. But like Erica just mentioned, I'm seeing on social media and hearing from other people that AT&T is starting to get back up and running. And Doug mentioned that there was a huge AT&T compound kind of set up at a place over there. So hopefully they're going to get service back up to where it should be.
I hope they do. These are things that you kind of sort of expect when storms do hit our area. I think we have Evan Irani who's joining us now. He is over in the Esplanade Mall, I believe. Oh no, you're at the Killer House Fire.
At the apartments, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so we're right across the street actually from the Esplanade Mall. So this is in Relay's Esplanade apartment complex. You see some vehicles still kind of traveling through, so I'll move out of the way. I want to say, I know our shot is a little bit wobbly right now, so if we freeze up on you, hopefully you can still hear me along the way. But what you see behind us is the embers. Firefighters still putting out the embers of this fire that started just around 9 p.m. Fire department did confirm with us it was just about between 9 and 10 p.m. that this fire started up. No word yet on the exact cause. However, the fire department did confirm with us that there are reports and pictures that they've received at the fire department through investigators that there was someone using a generator in their home when this fire started up around 9 p.m. Again, that is not confirmed by the fire department, but they say they are investigating that as one of the possible causes of this fire. Again, right across the street from the Esplanade Mall, we see that there are about 12 units, and that's what we've been told, is that in this building specifically, there were 12 units. The apartment behind it was actually where this began, and that was an additional 12 units. So in total, 24 units at the Esplanade, the Relay's Esplanade apartments affected by this. What they say is that when they arrived at 9 p.m., this was when Hurricane Ida was really passing through. And you may remember officials having said, if there's something that happens at this time, we may be unable to get to you. That's exactly what happened with this. Kenner Fire Rescue says that when they came through, fire pressure from these hydrants was incredibly low. They say not even half of what it normally should be. So in turn, they weren't able to respond with their normal response efforts. They say they made several passes back and forth to try to respond to this fire, but because water pressure was so low, they simply were not able to. So they say now, as we head into what will soon be the afternoon hours, they say when they normally would step on that yellow hose that maybe at half right now. They're continuing to stay on. So that when this it's flames shooting into the air, and they were trying to get cars out. Close to the road here, just across from the Esplanade Mall. So you see there how those houses, these 24 units, they're still working on getting those embers out, the smoke out, several cars that are pretty much complete. But it's kind of the scene where it looks like one of those fire trucks is actually just reconfigured to bring that truck back in.
Having some trouble hearing him, so.
Yeah, Evan Morales is joining us. That was him earlier at the house fire, the apartment fire that we showed you. We talked about the issues that Kidder was having with their water system. They told, the officials said that as this fire started, and Evan just told us, the fire started around the time I was going through Kenner. So despite not already having issues with the water, it was just not safe, of course, for first responders to respond to that fire. It was a difficult situation, and so this is what we have, and hopefully we can learn a little bit more from firefighters in that situation, why the fire started, and if everyone got out safely. Hopefully they did.
I don't think that there were any reports of injuries there, that's what we've been hearing. But it was interesting to hear Evan say that the fire department has about half the pressure that they normally would, which is a huge handicap for them whenever they have to respond to a fire. So it's really important. I know he said that they're still investigating whether or not that fire was caused by improper generator use, but it's so important if you're using those generators to follow all of those recommendations from the fire marshal about where you should use it, how you should use it, and be extra cautious about the gas that you're using to put in it.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who, which I was having a conversation with my family earlier about possibly getting a generator, and there's a fear there because they've never used it before. You know, you hear about how to use it properly, keeping it out of your home, make sure it's not in an enclosed space, and making sure, you know, whether it's a gas generator or a different sort of generator. I mean, you have to be careful with it because a lot of the things that we saw, lessons that we learned after Hurricane Laura, we had some people that we lost after the storm, and that was because of generator use. They were trying to use generators in their homes and mistakenly died due to carbon monoxide poisoning. So you have to be careful. I know that there's the rush probably, and there was a rush prior to the storm arriving of people to purchase generators, but you have to be careful when you use them.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I didn't even realize is that if you have it too close to a window, the window can get fumes into your house, and so you can end up with carbon monoxide in your house if the generator is too close to a window.
Wow, I did not know that.
Or even if the window just, I think, has, cracks in it that gas can get through.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So they are very dangerous, but they are also helpful, and I'm sure people are very reliant on them today. So many people out there are without power. We're glad you're joining us, though. We're trying to keep you informed about everything that's going on. We're getting more and more information as the hours go by about what the state of those parishes that were hit the hardest look like, what the state of those parishes is. And so as we get those updates, we'll, of course, continue to bring them to you.
All right, we've got an update from LCMC. All of their hospitals, right now, they're on lockdown until Wednesday, providing emergency level care only. All urgent care locations, they're closed. All surgical and elective procedures and appointments obviously canceled. The health system says it is stable and it's self-sufficient, and that no hospital operations were interrupted during the storm, which is very, very good news.
It